right, Rosie. We're live. Hey, Marilyn. Hey, Jeanette. How are y'all doing? Happy New Year. See, I can see us here, but there's a delay. I don't get it. Rosie. So, wait a minute. Hang on. Hey, Marilyn. Hey, Jeanette. Okay. And Ryan. How you doing, Ryan? Happy New Year to everybody. Hope everyone had a safe, happy New Year's. I'm tired today. Happy New Year to everyone. Hope your 2025 was okay. 2025 was good. I mean, hey, I got another one. Got another year under my belt, so it's always a good thing. So I'm sure that Maryland had a probably a noisy New Year's being in New York. I had a noisy New Year's here. Of course, everybody in this part of Texas, the fireworks started at like 9 o'clock, but then right at midnight, it sounded like an absolute war zone. I mean, it was, which it always does. I mean, sort of halfway. I mean, not really out in the country, but it's not like downtown Houston or anything. So who knows? I'm sure downtown Houston was an interesting place also. But Rosie pretty much slept right through it. I mean, fireworks don't bother her. So, I mean, I guess it's just a matter of she knows that she's safe. But yeah, she was just balled up on the sofa sleeping. And then I woke her up right at midnight. So could never have an early night on New Year's. Hell no. The way Rosie looks at Jeanette said the way Rosie looks at me. Yeah, she has been screaming at me all day. I don't know what's gotten into her. She's been wanting to play, and now you see her. She's sitting there doing nothing. She's been screaming at me. I mean, like just following me around, screaming at me when I'm getting ready to go to church and everything. And she's just one side of the living room to the other. Yeah, I'm gonna try to play with her here in a minute, see if she's still fired up like she was about 20, 30 minutes ago. She was in a mood. It was quiet in my neighborhood, and oh, really? Wow. See, I figured New York City. I figured it'd be a madhouse, but hey, I guess that's what I get for assuming. I guess I've never been to New York City. I've been to New York quite a few times. My first wife was from upstate, but I've never had any reason to go to the city. So New Year's Eve in New York City is just what you watch the ball drop at midnight, and that's my impression of it. So, but yeah. Marilyn says, not where I live. Well, good. I mean, that's there's a lot to be said for nice and quiet. I don't know why I can't stop yawning. I just started about 10 minutes ago. Oh my God. But yeah, it's Annette says she wants to visit New York so bad. Hectic. Yeah. I mean, I did some contracting work for a company back in 2009. They subcontracted to Walmart, and then that company hired a bunch of people and sent us all over the country doing some updating type stuff for Walmart. And I did 51 stores in like 9 weeks. I mean, it wasn't like going and doing like remodels or anything. there were some stores that it was just go in and do a little touch up of this or do a little, 30 minutes of this, and I mean there was a couple nights I did like 2 or 3 stores in a night, but we could only go in at night when they were closed or when they were when they weren't as busy. But they sent me up to, and this was in the middle of winter, and for anybody that's been part of the channel, y'all know how much I hate cold weather. And part of where they actually sent me, this was, I think it was like in November and December of 2009. They sent me, one of the places they sent me was to Maine. I was like, what? Yeah, driving. Yeah, it was miserable. But anyway, all this to say, I considered going to New York City when I was on that contract, but I was like, I just need to get my work done, because knowing me, I'd get in trouble in New York City. So, but yeah, that's that. And when I was married to my first wife, we made several trips to upstate New York, like when they would have family get-togethers and things like that. And there was one of the trips we had a day or so that we were just going to go out and see stuff, and it was kind of flipping. It almost came down to a coin toss. Do we want to head south and go to New York City, or do we want to go north and go to Niagara Falls and Canada and all that stuff? And apparently the Canada, the Niagara Falls coin flip is what prevailed. So because we ended up going to Niagara Falls, but no, never been to the city. So I actually looked into, when I was 18, I looked into moving to New York City, and when I looked at apartments, this was back in 88, 89, when I was looking to move up there. An efficiency apartment, which was, Maryland, how small they are. I mean, it was like almost like a broom closet with a sink in it. Back then, it was like $1,200 or $1,500, and here I was, 18 years old. I was like, yeah, okay, no, thank you. It's hectic in Manhattan. It's probably easy to get carried away in New York. Upstate New York is beautiful. Oh yes, I can tell you right now what Marilyn just said about upstate New York being beautiful. The first time we went up there, I was shocked. I mean, because I never really gave much thought to it, but we drove up there, and it is some of the most beautiful landscapes. I mean, rolling hills, apple orchards for miles. It was just some of the most gorgeous land I'd ever seen in my life. So yeah, Maryland's spot on with the upstate being beautiful. I mean, it is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and I've been a lot of places. What do you think, Doodle? Did you see what you did to me last night? She got me last night. Let me get in on the camera. See if y'all can see this. Yeah, see that? Those 2 big gouges in my arm? Where is it? Right there. Yeah. Yeah, she got me last night. We weren't playing. We weren't doing anything. All we were doing. I was sitting. I was kicked back on the sofa, watching something. I was watching something on YouTube. She was curled up next to me, sleeping. I kind of had my arm, wrapped around her. She's all balled up and everything. And then all of a sudden, she decided to stretch, and just claws and everything. This was her back feet, claws and everything just stretched out, and just went the way my arm was. It was. I let out a very audible ow. So yeah, I mean that's just from her. That's all she did was stretch. I mean, we weren't playing, we weren't fighting, we weren't doing anything. I'm watching YouTube on the TV, and she's balled up, asleep, and then all of a sudden just decides to stretch and just does her whole, and just and just gouged me. And then she got me. Then last night while we were sleeping, I don't see it. I guess that one didn't leave a mark, but she got me on this arm. No, it did. There, it's a small one. You can't hardly see it. She got me there too. So I mean, and it was her back because I filed. Remember, I've been talking about I need to file her front claws. I filed her front claws, and I can play with her now without getting terribly cut up and everything. But this is her back claws that she will absolutely positively not let me touch. I mean, if I try to do anything to her back claws, then the next episode of the Rosie Show will be my obituary because she will kill me. Yeah, she absolutely will not let me touch her back feet, so I'm just stuck. I mean, this is what she does every now and again. Brat. Jeanette says she knows that Rosie didn't. I don't know. I think sometimes she pretends to stretch and does it on purpose, Jeanette. I don't know. She doesn't know her. No, she really doesn't. And especially being CH, I mean, she could just flop over in any direction at any time and just rip me to shreds. Did you mean it or did you not mean it? You're not going to say? Ah, chin scratches. Oh God, here we go. Don't stretch, please. Please don't stretch. You'll hurt me again. You gonna get me? Seriously? Why you gotta do that to me, man? Yeah, see that one you didn't. You don't like that when I touch your back feet. What, baby? What? What is it, Doodle? Oh, God. What is it, baby? Now, Rosie does not mean to hurt. Yeah, I think she does. Let's get out the Band-Aids. Oh, yeah. I actually bought an extra box, so I'm prepared. Now, even when she's playing like this, I may be about to be proven a liar, but even when she's all fired up, she's still, like if I get my face close to her face, then she knows, it's like she knows that's, be nice. So we're going to give it a try. She may gouge my eyeballs out, who knows. What is it, Rosie? You get fired up? You gonna get fired up? You gonna get me? You gonna get me? What is it? Gonna do kisses? Oh, see, look, that's the first time. What is it, baby? And Daddy pushed you too far. Oh, you want the chin scratches? You want kisses? Want to do kisses? One for Jeanette, one for Marilyn, one for Ryan, one for Stephen, one for Miss Elizabeth.
And one for me.
Have to be careful. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, I told you I was about to be made a liar of because she. That's a first step in whatever. When did we get her? We got her in 2017, I think 2018. So in like 7 years, that's the first time she's ever done that. So she must be really irritated. What was that? What was that little half-hearted little grunt meow?
Oh, and your cheek. You like having the cheeks petted.
She's like, okay, Daddy, just rub me between the eyes, and I'll forgive you. She loves being rubbed between the eyes. She's actually going to sleep. Tail's calming down a little bit. She loves being rubbed between the eyes.
What is it, baby? What Daddy mean to you? What Daddy mean to you by playing with you when you were relaxed? You know what I think this deserves? I think this deserves treats. What do you think? What do you think, baby? Does that deserve treats?
Let's do treats.
There you go, baby.
Since Daddy disturbed you when you were relaxing. Yeah. That's one. There goes two, swallowed whole. You know there's chewy stuff in the middle of it. Just say. Oh, there she chewed that one. That's good, isn't it? If you don't swallow them whole, like you did that one. You're such a weird little cat. Such a strange little cat. But I wouldn't have you any other way.
I wouldn't have her any other way. Wait.
What a brat. Oh. She's a brat, I'm telling you. She's spoiled rotten. You're spoiled rotten. Rotten, I tell you. I swear, this cat. So, Rosie is perfect. Okay. I don't know. Sometimes I might not agree with you, Marilyn. But no, we just so New Year's Eve we just sat and chilled out, and I think it was about 12:15, 12:20 when I went to my fridge, and there were a whole bunch of sweets went bye bye. I think I threw away, I don't know, a bunch of chocolate chip cookies, a bunch of brownies. How are your studies going? They're going all right. I'm gonna do some studying here in a little bit. I got a couple of sections done the other day. I think I've got a couple of days free this week that hopefully I'll be able to more or less dedicate to making some headway, because things just got so busy. I made a lot of headway when I first got the program, but now you've got 6 months from the company that I bought the program from. They give you 6 months to complete it, and then you don't have access to the courses anymore. But you can do an extension. I don't know how much an extension costs, but back in October, I was well ahead of schedule. At this point, I am at just about the midpoint of the amount of time that I have to complete it, and I'm just a little bit short of the midpoint of being complete. So I've gotten behind schedule, so I need to have some time to do some serious catching up. But I was able to squeeze in an hour or so the other day that I was able to knock out a couple of sections, and I'm going to do some today. And then, like I said, I think I've got a couple of days this week that I'm not on job sites. I'll be doing other things, but I'm not on job sites. So I'll be hopefully be able to get somewhere caught up, because I know that the program, my time on it expires the end of March, like the third week of March. And like I said, I can extend it, but I don't know how much that costs. I would like to not have to extend it, but there's 6 sections, and I'm probably not even 10% done with the third section. So, you know, three sections completed would have me at the halfway point, but I've probably got 10% of the third course completed. So I've got a little bit of all this to say. I've got a little bit of making up to do. I got a little catching up to do, but I mean, you know, one of those things has been kind of unavoidable. Just as it happens, you know, right when I thought I had the time to get it done, and I got really busy, and I've got 2 big bids out, which if either one of them, let alone both of them, if either one of them come through, then I can tell you right now, I will definitely miss the 6-month deadline. I definitely won't be able to complete it. So, but the jobs are big enough that more or less whatever it costs to extend will not be a concern. So we'll see. See how that works out. All I can do is all I can do. So, you know, at my age, I've learned, you know, not to stress over stuff that you can't control. But then again, at my age, if I do stress, I could, I don't know, break a hip or something. I don't know. You have to sit for exams or complete work along the way. The study course is all just, they do exams along the way. So you've got the course that is made up of 6. Well, let's see, you've got the entire program is made up of 6 courses, and within each course there is a unit, and then within each unit is a lesson. So I mean, it just pares down. Well, you take little short exams after each lesson. So like the unit that I'm on now is unit 1 of the 3rd course, and I'm on like the 8th lesson. So after each lesson there will be a 2 or 3 or 4 question quiz, and then you'll move on to the next lesson. Once you finish all the lessons in that unit, then you'll take a unit exam. And then once you finish that unit exam, once you pass that unit exam, then you can move on to the next course. And then, like I said, there's 6 courses to complete the whole thing. And then after you take all 6 courses, then you can take a practice exam, which is the equivalent to the test you'll take for the state. And all the other tests within the program, you can take it however many times it takes to pass. I mean, all it is it's still teaching you. It's just a refresher. It's just, you know, verifying that you know it doesn't count before you don't get graded on it or anything like that. But then once I complete the entire program, all 6 courses, then there's a practice exam, which is, like I said, the equivalent to the state exam, and that you only get 2 chances to take the practice exam. But you have to complete the practice exam and get the certificate before you're eligible to now go pay money and take the state exam. So you have to pass each lesson exam to go to the next lesson. You have to pass all the lesson exams in a unit to be able to take the unit exam, and you have to pass the unit exam before you can complete that course. You have to complete the course exam and get a certificate before you can move on to the next course and complete the program. So yeah, I think by the time, the good thing is, with all the questions I'm asked in the lessons and the units and the courses and all this stuff, by the time it's all said and done, I will probably, if I'm guessing, I will probably have answered maybe 1,500 to 2,000 questions. So it's a lot of questions, a lot of knowledge to have to consume, but, and I was talking to somebody about this the other day, but the final exam, which is similar to the state exam, and the state exam is only made up of, I think, 60 questions. So my thinking, in these 1,500 to 2,000 questions that I'll answer along the way, I mean, it gets in the weeds on some stuff that I'm like, what the heck? How am I going to remember all this? But then I think, well, the state exam's only 60 questions, and they've got to cover all this material. I'm thinking to myself, surely the state exam won't be as detailed. It'll be more broad view, as opposed to getting into the minutia of everything. I guess it'd be the difference between, like, if you talk about how an engine works, or say my line of work, building. You could say you build a wall, you insulate the wall, you sheetrock the wall, and you paint the wall. That would be the broad spectrum analysis. That would be the larger overview. To get into the detail would be, you have to have a set of plans, you have to do a layout, you have to make sure your walls are square, you have to snap your chalk lines, you have to have all your lumber ready, you have to attach the bottom plate to the subfloor, you have to put 2x4 studs at 16 inches on center, and then where you have windows or doors, you have to put jack studs and king studs, you have to have a header to disperse the weight, you have to put blocking to take up the space where the window goes, you have to have a double top plate, and then you have to have dead wood on top. So I mean, you can get into all the detail, which is the sort of the equivalent of the 2,000 questions. But then I'm kind of thinking in my little silly brain that the state exam is going to be sort of the broad overview: build a wall, insulate the wall, sheetrock the wall, paint the wall. A lot of learning and preparation. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, state exam sounds scary. Yeah, the last the last state exam I took was for my builder's license when I lived in Alabama. Before that, state exam I took was back in '96 in the police academy when I took my state exam. to get my APOS certificate, and to it's where the state certifies you that you can be a cop. So but that one was actually, believe it or not, I'm gonna, if any of you know any cops personally, this may not come as a shock to you. It definitely came as a shock to me when I was in the police academy, but that was probably one of the easiest tests I had ever taken in my life, because they literally spoon feed you the information. And when I say they literally spoon feed you the information, they would have, let's say they would have a detective come in from robbery and talk about robbery, what the elements of the crime of robbery are, what makes this particular crime of robbery, what levels of robbery there are, and just all this stuff, and how you go about, all robbery's a felony. None of that goes through the city. It goes through the DA's office, and how do you get, the process of going to the DA's office and screening a felony warrant, just all this stuff. But then at the end, and you're supposed to be taking notes, so you can learn, right? That's how you normally learn. Somebody teaches you, you take notes, you learn. Well, then at the end of each lecture, then they would have a review period. The review period literally involved reading the test questions to us. Okay, so the review period was not, okay, Recruit Sibley, what are the elements of robbery in the second degree? No, it wasn't like that. They would read from the test and say, the elements of robbery in the second degree are A, blah, 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 B, blah, 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 C, you might see that again, C, the elements of robbery are blah, 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 blah. So they're literally telling you, they're literally reading the test questions to you and literally telling you which one of the choices is the answer. And literally telling you, you might see this again. You might see that question number 48 might be C. It's like, I mean, you could literally, I literally could have slept through every lecture in the academy, woken up for the review period, and made 100 on every test. I mean, it was, like I said, it was the easiest. I mean, I don't remember what I made on the final, because you actually take for APOST out. So APOST stands for Alabama Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission, and every state has some type of standards, training standards that have to be met. So we would have the first, I'm trying to remember, I think it was like the first 12 weeks of the academy was all APOST, was all state stuff. And then if you passed that, which again, I don't know how you don't pass, but believe it or not, there were people in my class that failed APOST. So you would take a test once a week, an APOST test every week, and then at the end of the 12th week, you would take a comprehensive final that would cover everything that you had learned. But again, and I'm trying to remember if it was open book. I think it was open, like open notebook. I mean, you could literally have in your notebook the question 48. The answer is C. I'm trying to remember. I think it was like, I don't want to say for sure, but I want to say there was some kind of open note system to it. So it's almost like, how in God's name do you fail? I mean, it's like almost impossible to fail. But like I said, so they get a post out of the way the first 12 weeks of the academy, and then then after that, then it's all local laws, local, city ordinances and things that you'll be enforcing. Or if we're going to be working for the county, it'll be county ordinances. But you've got to get that state certification first, and if you don't get that, then it doesn't matter. You don't have to learn the city stuff because you're not going to be a cop. You can't do it. So they get all the state stuff out of the way first, and then move on to the city stuff. There were literally people, and I'm not talking about one person. I want to say there were like 6 or 7 people in my academy class that got fired after a post because they didn't pass, and they give you like 3 or 4 chances to take the test. I mean, it's like I don't know how people. It was crazy, but I'm like, hey, whatever. Okay, 10-4. Jeanette says I would never make it as a police officer. The physical aspect of it either. Well, and it's also the mentality. I can tell you right now. People have asked me, there after I left policing, and I was offered opportunities to get back into it, and I've been offered opportunities to get back into it. When I moved to Texas and whatnot, do it here in Texas. I had people tell me how, since I had 11 years as a police officer, they said that that I could challenge the test, which means I wouldn't have to go back through the academy. I don't know if it's true or not, but I mean, I had police officers tell me that I could challenge the test. In other words, go take the test, and if I passed it, then I wouldn't have to go through the academy and all that crap. I could just take the test, get certified, get hired somewhere. But I'm like, no. I did it for 11 years. I'm proud of the service that I gave, but there's no way in hell, and especially nowadays, I don't have the mentality for it. No. I'll just say this. You could police a lot differently back in the 90s than you can in 2026. That much I promise you. If I became a cop now, then I'd probably be fired, and I would say if I made it a month without getting fired, I would be shocked. Because I've got that old school 90s, this is how you police mentality. I mean, not that I'm a horrible person or anything, but you did things, and the criminals knew you did things. I mean, they knew what the game was all about. It's like we had one guy that dude would sell much dope, and he's a big old guy. I'm not going to say any names or anything since it's public. But this was a big old guy, and he would sell much dope. He would run from you in a heartbeat. But if you caught him, he wasn't going to fight you. I mean, if he did decide to fight you, hell, it probably would have taken 3 or 4 of us to get him in custody. But he wasn't going to fight because he didn't want to get the reputation of fighting the police, because he knew if he did, next time, instead of 1 or 2 officers coming to talk to him while he's on the street corner or standing on his front porch, he knew that it would be 10 or 12 and that we weren't going to be as nice. So he knew his job in life was to sell dope and to try to get away with it. Our job in life was to catch him. He understood. It was almost like that cartoon of the sheepdog and the wolf, where they're friends and they're, hey buddy, how was your weekend? And then they clock in, and now they're butting. That's almost the way it was with this guy. If you caught him with dope on him, he very likely was going to take off running. If you caught him, tackled him, then it was like, okay, you got me today. He'd put his hands behind his back, you'd cuff him up, search him, put him in the car, and you take him to jail, talking about the ball game this weekend. Talking about, what was that coach thinking on that play? I mean, And he'd be like, I know, I saw it myself, Officer Sibley. I don't know what he was thinking. You know, he was the nicest guy in the world, but he wasn't. You know, he understood. Nowadays, it's a little different. I don't know how they stay calm after finding out some of the horrible things people do. Yeah, that one, Ryan, you're absolutely right, and that one, I'm sure that they're, you know, that one I'm not gonna comment on. I will say that, calm, yeah, let's just say that there, how can I word this without sounding horrible? Uh, yeah, I'm gonna, yeah, there's, yeah, see, yeah, that, yeah, I'm gonna no comment on that. But, uh, it wasn't uncommon for people to be able to be convinced to regret what they had done, especially if they really brought harm to an innocent person or a child or a woman. Then there were ways to point out the error of their ways and that they understood. I'll just say that. That's crazy how they handle that around me. Yeah, yeah. So difficult to be in law enforcement these days. Yeah, I mean, it's not that I mind the cameras everywhere, because, you know, that was something that we kind of took into consideration even back then, even in the 90s. We had one sergeant that would remind us regularly, you know, just because y'all work third shift, just because y'all work 11 to 7, you know, don't forget the night has 1,000 eyes. I remember him saying that on a regular basis. So it's not that. It's just the entitlement and the blatant. I can commit this crime right in front of you, and it's almost like daring you to do something. Then when you do enforce the law, then generally all hell breaks loose. So it's like, you know what? There were reasons I got out of policing, just because I was sick and tired of the political stuff. And I'm not talking about political like Democrat and Republican. I'm talking about just the politics within the department. Who's kissing whose butt, and who's cutting whose grass, and, you know, who's, you know, buddies with this one. I was like, you know, whatever. You know, there's no way. Like I've told people, I'll never say never, but if it came down to where there was absolutely nothing in this world that I could do to provide for my family other than going back to be a cop, then I would go back to being a cop. But if there's anything else I can do to work and earn and make money and provide for myself and my family, then I'm going to go do that before I put a badge and a gun on again. Or not a badge and a gun, but a badge. Because I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment, and I live in Texas, so you put two and two together on that one. Nothing wrong with old school. Yeah, I mean, it's got its moments. Just I'm with Maryland, some old ways work, but yeah, they did. I mean, there was, you know, I mean, it doesn't sound politically correct these days, but again, there was an understanding. A lot of times, not in every case, because there were some people that, you know, had to have the program explained to them. So, you know, like there was one guy that, you know, we arrested that he wanted to give us a, you know, again, without going into the details, he wanted to give us a really hard time, and he ended up having a, you know, not, you know, wasn't his best day. But then I ran across him about 3 weeks later, and instead of me being a low-life MFer and this, that, and the other, I was, you know, sir, and thank you, and, you know, have a good day, officer. I mean, he had to learn, you know, there are other ways to deal with people than to threaten them and call them names. Because in the real world, take the badge off, you know, at least the way it used to be, whether there's cameras around or not, you incite somebody to violence and you're probably going to get violence. I mean, that's, you know, that's just the way it is. That's the way the world works. I mean, you walk up to somebody at a gas station and, you know, you say something that would incite somebody to punch you in the face, then there's a good chance you're going to get punched in the face. But, you know, cops are not, you know, we were held to a higher standard. That, and also I will say this, that when, and I think I've mentioned this before, is when I got hired by the police department, I started the academy, I was really excited because I thought that I was going to be working side by side with people that had their life together, that they believed in, you know, they lived an unsullied life. They were locked on. They did the right thing, morals, ethics, all this stuff. I learned real quick some of the biggest criminals I ever had to deal with wore badges. And I'm not saying that about law enforcement in general, but, you know, the old saying of, you know, a few bad apples spoils the bunch is definitely true, because there were guys that I worked with that were just straight up criminals. And I mean, that not only didn't have any business wearing a badge, they should have been in prison, and some of them actually ended up there finally, thank God. So, Brian said he'd just get out and sell more dope. Don't suppose you can get a normal job when you're in that deep. Well, number one, you're right. He knew that, you know, he's going to go to jail for possession of, you know, whatever he had on him that particular day. He was going to go make bail, and he was going to, you know, bond out and go back to slinging dope. But you know, as far as the, you know, being in deep, you know, it at that level of the game, it was more, well, when you've got somebody that's 12, 13, 14 years old, and this person that I was referring to a while ago, he was grown, he had kids. As a matter of fact, one of his favorite places to hide his dope, until we figured it out, was he would hide his dope in his baby's diaper. But particularly for the younger ones, I think he was like late 20s, early 30s at the time. This was back in the 90s, back in like 96, 97, 98. But even for him, but for a lot of the younger ones, when minimum wage back then was, what, $5.25 or something like that, it's hard to tell somebody that they need to go punch a clock for $5.25 an hour that you're going to have taxes taken out of, and go stand in this building for 6 or 8 hours and do what you're told so you can make 40 or 50 bucks, when you can hang out with your buddies at 2 o'clock in the morning and make $8,000 or $10,000 in 3 or 4 hours selling dope. You know, it's kind of hard to tell somebody, you know, that the McDonald's route for minimum wage is in the long run better. You know, when they're sitting there going, you know, well, hell, dude, you know, I make more in 3 days than you do, you know, in a year. I mean, which was literally the case. If somebody was making 10 grand a night slinging dope, that's 30 grand in 3 days. I was getting shot at by these same people, and I was making 21.4 a year before taxes. That was my gross. So yeah, it's kind of hard to get somebody to decide to find an alternate career path when, you know, there's that kind of money to be made. Now, the flip side is you could get killed at any time, because if you're making 10 grand slinging in this particular area, don't think that the guy that's slinging over here don't want to come over here and sling in your area. And that's how turf wars get started. Is, this guy's making 10 grand over here, he wants to make 10 grand over here also, but this is your corner. I'm going to take his corner. And just like any other war, how do you take territory? Through violence, So yeah, you may make 10 grand a night, 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand, just depending. But if you're dead, then you really, don't get to enjoy it. Or if you're the guy that took over the street corner, now you're going to, criminals aren't the brightest bulbs in the box. So 99 times out of 100, they're getting caught. So, your desire to take over that street corner now resulted in you killing the guy. Now you got caught. Now you're going to prison for the rest of your life, or at least a vast majority of it. So, that's why I say at the end, if it was a matter of, it was safe and there's a good retirement plan at the end of 5 or 10 years of slinging dope, hey, you're going to make $5,000-$10,000 a night for the next 5 years, and there's no negative consequences to come from it, and you'll have a nice little pension at the end. Yeah, that'd be really attractive, but that's not generally the way it works. So, and we had people that we dealt with. Again, I won't mention any names. We had one guy that was kind of the opposite of the first guy, where this guy would kill you in a heartbeat. He went to, even at like 18, 19 years old, he was paying his attorney. At the time, this was again the mid '90s. He was paying his attorney like $5 grand a month just to be on call, just to answer the phone when he called. We sent him up on like 2 different murder charges, and he got off on both of them. Paid his attorney, over $100,000 at 18 or 19 years old to get him off, and he did. One of the charges, there was a witness. It was a local prostitute, but shortly before she was set to testify, she somehow ended up shot in the head 3 or 4 times and stuffed in a drainage ditch. So that ended that trial. But yeah, this guy would kill you in a half a second. Well, he made enough money by the time he was like 22, 23 years old. He had paid cash for a house for his mom. He was being driven around in a chauffeur-driven, not necessarily a limo, it was just a big Lincoln. But he ended up, talk about somebody wanting to take over your street corner, so to speak. He was always a target because he had a massive operation and people wanted to take it over. And so he was always getting into things, getting into shootings and whatnot. He was a serious pain in our butt. Serious pain in our butt. But somebody finally did successfully take over his business, and it was his brother. His brother shot him in the back of the head so that he could take over the business, but of course his brother got caught, so now, this guy that was sort of the kingpin of that part of town back in the 90s ended up getting smoked by his brother, who's now doing life in prison for killing him. So it's like, yeah. The disrespect cops get now is just insane because a lot of kids just taught to respect it. I think I missed that comment at first. I need to roll up. I need to scroll up. Where am I at? That's a very, very important comment, by the way. Why is it not scrolling? Scroll. Jeanette. So Jeanette said, the disrespect cops get now is just insane because a lot of kids are just not taught to respect anyone, even the teachers. that's true ish. I mean, what I'm saying is you're not wrong, Jeanette, but it probably wasn't to the level that it is now, but even back in the 90s, the disrespect for the police and teachers and everything was still completely off the chart. I was shocked because I was always taught, yes or no, sir, do what they say, this, that, and the other. I was shocked when I came out of the academy at how blatant the disrespect was. The difference is, back in the 90s and even the early 2000s, there weren't camera phones in everybody's hands, and there wasn't Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff that it could be posted on. It was still there. And granted, you're absolutely right. It wasn't to the level that it is now. But even I was surprised when I first came out of the academy at how bad it was. Because again, I projected my respect for authority onto the whole world and found out real quick that was not the case. Marilyn said entitlement, victim mentality. Yep. Marilyn said thumbs up to the Second Amendment. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll just say this. As far as the Second Amendment, unless it is an airport or a courthouse, I exercise my Second Amendment right without fail. So, I mean, there are places that people say, oh, you're not supposed to take a gun there, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, 10-4. Guess what? Crime happens there. As a matter of fact, a lot of crime, a lot of shootings happen in these so-called gun-free zones. I mean, I'm not one of these people that wear, open carry, on my hip, all that stuff. I don't do. As a matter of fact, I have been around people for months and then just get in the conversation and they never realized that I was armed. Because number one, it does make people uneasy. It makes people that aren't familiar with guns, or even people that are familiar. I'm very familiar with guns. I've been shooting all my life, and I'm not intimidated by guns at all. But even I start looking sideways at somebody that walks into Walmart with a big old gun and a holster, and they've got they don't have a badge next to it. Number one, it does sort of set people at unease, but it also makes you a target. If I were a bad guy and I was going to go do some kind of a mass shooting in Walmart or some store, and I look and that guy right there is open carrying a gun, I know he's the very first person I need to take out. He's the very first person that's going to be likely to stop me. He's the first threat that I'm going to encounter. So it makes you a target. So that's another reason. Plus, again, I could open carry. In Texas, you can open carry. Alabama, I believe you can open carry. Florida, you can open carry. But it's one of those things where I'm not carrying so that I can intimidate people or make myself a target. I'm not trying to make people feel uneasy. All I want to do is just move through the world being a nice guy that has the ability to defend himself. So, but yeah, like I said, people have been around me for for months, and until I told them, never realized that I was armed. So yeah. Yes, you are right. My nephew was a cop, and one of the main reasons he quit was because of the bad cops in Georgia. Yeah, and that's the thing, Jeanette. You got bad cops everywhere, unfortunately. Like that, and not all. If you've got a department of like Birmingham. When I first started Birmingham, they had I don't know, 700-ish officers. I mean, it's nothing like New York City. I think New York City, at least before people, started, mass exodus, I think New York City, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maryland, was somewhere around 35,000 officers. But Birmingham had, 700, 750, something like that when I started. They've since gone down because Birmingham's a, cesspool. But in a department that size, it may have been 5%, it may have been 10%, it may have been 15%, but it certainly wasn't 60 or 80 or 90% of the officers that were bad. And then you've got to define bad. There's all kind of levels of bad. For instance, there was one guy that I worked with that he went and answered a natural death call, which if somebody just dies at their home, then of course they have to call the police. A lot of times it's an elderly person, it's somebody that might have been on hospice or something like that. But there has to be be documentation that a death occurred and where it occurred and what the circumstances were. So a natural death call was not terribly uncommon. We just go and there's the body, generally in bed with a bunch of medications around. There may be a hospice nurse there at the time, but we would go and say, yeah, there's a dead person. That's this is their name. This is where they died. Spoke to the family. They had these medical problems. This, that, they've been expecting it. They were taking this medication. Blah 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 blah. And then we would contact the coroner because bodies have to go through the coroner on some level. So we would contact the coroner and they'd give us a call and we'd say, hey, I'm here, got, looks like a natural death. The guy was 75 years old. He'd been on these medications. He had a heart condition, was diagnosed 15 years ago, blah, 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 blah. Everything looks good. And when I say good, everything, nothing looks suspicious. Not like, oh, good, the guy's dead. No, it's like everything looks like just a natural death. And he would be like, all right, go ahead and release the body to the family. So that means release the body to the family means they can go ahead and call whatever funeral home they want, and the funeral home can come to the house and pick the body up and take it and then prepare the body for whatever service they're going to have. Whereas if it's a non-natural death or there's some question, then the coroner, instead of releasing the body to the family, then the coroner will send one of their assistants out to collect the body, bring it back to the coroner's office, and then they'll do an autopsy and do a report there. So anyway, that's the difference between a homicide or an unknown or an undetermined or something like that versus a natural death, an obvious natural death. And so this guy goes and answers a natural death call and ends up stealing and cashing one of the dead man's checks. So for like $10,000. So they start investigating him for stealing the dead guy's checks. And as they dig around, and this is what I was told by various people that I knew that worked in the department at the time, is I was not part of what I'm saying, I was not part of the investigation. So technically this could be, hearsay. I will say it didn't not fit with kind of what we thought about the guy. But so anyway, so as they're investigating him for cashing the dead man's checks, or a check, then it shifts from a natural death investigation to a homicide investigation with him as the suspect, my fellow officer. So then they start looking at him for killing the guy and stealing his checks. And he was, I'll just say there were people in the upper levels of the police department and the city government at the time that it was known, it was sort of like, like an unspoken, it was like an open secret that they were involved in criminal activity. And this officer was friends with a lot of those people. So once it turned into a homicide investigation, then it just went away. Nothing ever happened. Now, for all I know, they could have investigated and said, oh yeah, it truly was a natural death. And no, he didn't actually steal the dead man. I don't know. I don't know what the end result was, but like I said, as soon as word got around that it had turned into a homicide investigation and they were looking at him for killing the guy, then everything just sort of stopped, and it was sort of like, nothing to see here, go on your, go on about your business. So, and then like I said, there were people that were high up in the police department and in the city government that were, involved in things that, like there were certain dopers that we were not allowed to try to make cases on because they were cousins or somebody high up. And if you ever tried to make a case on them, you'd come to work and find out, hey, you've been transferred to a different precinct, or you've been transferred to parking lot duty or something like that. You'd end up getting some crap assignment because you tried to make a case on somebody that was selling dope that just happened to be a cousin or a nephew or a niece or somebody of somebody high. So I mean, there were local prostitutes whose family had the personal phone number, the home phone numbers of we'll just say higher ups in both the police department and the government, where if we tried to make a case on any of those prostitutes, that it was not I say not uncommon. It had happened before, where it might be again, it might be, maybe the mayor would call the precinct commander at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, yeah, that arrest doesn't need to happen. Like, what? What? Why what? Number one, how does the mayor even know that I'm trying to make a case on a prostitute in a certain part of town at 3 o'clock in the damn morning? But what? So yeah, there's a lot. Couldn't live that way, always looking over your shoulder. No, that's true. Another thing I couldn't do is be a drug dealer. Thank God I never was around any of that. Yeah, I couldn't do it. I mean, it's like I never really even did drugs. I mean, it's like I tell everybody, I tried marijuana a time or two when I was a teenager. I mean, I think just about every teenager has. But it didn't do anything for me. It just made me paranoid. I didn't see what everybody got out of it. I'm like, okay, this is dumb. I'm paranoid. I feel like everybody's staring at me. But I never did anything else other than drink. I was in a band. I traveled all over the Southeast. Come on. But I never did anything other than, the couple times I smoked weed that, mainly because I was always the kind of person, I was paranoid that it would be my luck that the first time I did it, I would get something that was laced with something and end up dying. All my friends might be doing it, and hey, Scott, why don't you join us and blah, blah, blah. And I'll go, okay, yeah, and be gone. And be like, yeah, that's my luck. So I guess fear was the biggest reason I never did experiment with stuff. So, I suppose it's because everything is on video. Because like I said, there were things that happened that well, it's like Okay, so there was one thing that when I first came out of the academy, there was a big defense contractor at the Birmingham airport. They worked on airplanes, a lot of military airplanes, and they would just do, when a certain plane was needing updated or whatever, they'd fly it into Birmingham, and the plane may be at the place was called Pimco Aeroplex, and they went on strike right after I came out of the academy, and it was a pretty bad. I won't say it was a bad strike, but they had a couple of days where it was bad. I mean, people were getting. I mean, it was the union. They would the roads leading into Pimco. They would put nails out in the road, and people would end up. People that were crossing the picket line would end up getting flat tires as they came to work, because of course the people that are picketing don't want scabs, don't want people crossing the picket line, and of course other people that didn't have anything to do with Pimco would also end up getting flat tires. I mean, it was just a big mess. It was just a big mess, and the people that crossed the picket lines, a lot of them would go buy these, $400 or $500 beaters because they knew they were going to get their windows busted, they were going to get their tires flattened, they were going to, so they weren't going to come to work in their 6-month-old Crown Victoria or something, the nice and clean and pretty. They were going to come to work in some piece of garbage that they don't care when it gets torn up. But then and for the most part, the strike was relatively calm. The union had to have people standing the picket line 24/7. So there was somebody, usually a little group of like 3 or 4 people out there at all times, like I said, 24/7. And as we started bleeding into the fall and winter of '96, then they're still out there, and it's cold, and it's raining, and it's snow and everything, but they built them a little shelter and had a barrel with a fire in it and all this stuff to try to stay warm, because they had to have people out there 24/7. And then every now and again, the union would get together. They'd make all their members show up, and then we'd have to call tactical out. We'd have to have. We'd have to be prepared to keep the strikers out of the road and keep them from attacking. And then on those days, it got ugly. But it was our job just to stand the line. And this was before it got into winter, so let me back up and give you a little history on how policing works. Or worked at Birmingham. So you come out of the academy, and then you go on the training car. And you do 16 weeks on the training car. The first 8 weeks you do with one training officer on one shift. And then you switch up, and the second half of the training car you do with another training officer on another shift. So if you hear somebody say, I was on my second training officer, at least for Birmingham, it's not because you screwed up and ended up getting moved somewhere. They wanted you to get a feel for different police officers, different styles of policing. This one's going to police different than this one, and they also want you to get a feel for different shifts, because 3 to 11 at Birmingham is completely different than 7 to 3, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. You might as well be in 2 totally different worlds. So I was on the second half of the training car the first time one of these big call-outs came where the union made everybody come. And my second training officer was a guy, again, I'm not going to mention names, loved this guy to death. I don't even know, he'd been policing at the time, I want to say. So this was '96, I think he'd been policing at the time like 12, 15 years. Big old black guy, nicest guy, smooth talker. I could not do half the stuff on the streets that there was one day we pulled up next to a prostitute. I started to get out because I'm thinking, we're about to do a field interview. And he was like, no, just sit down, chill out. He was driving. Because his thing was, first thing at the beginning, we worked 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. His thing was, first thing in the morning, before we do anything, unless we get a call, We're going to go to McDonald's. We're going to get our breakfast burritos. We're going to get a newspaper. We're going to go sit behind food fair and eat our burritos while I read the newspaper. Okay, here I am, rookie, fresh out of the academy, and I'm ready to go. Then after we had breakfast, then we could go do police stuff. Well, I think we were on our way to get breakfast burritos, because at some point so me being the rookie, I had to drive, I had to do this, I had to do all that. But at a certain point, he quit letting me drive because I got us in a car chase on our way to get the burritos. So we not only didn't get our burritos, but I got us in a car chase before we had a chance to get breakfast. After that, he wouldn't let me drive until after we had breakfast, because he wasn't going to get us in any car chases. So he's driving, we're on our way to get breakfast, and for whatever reason, he pulls up next to this prostitute. And like I said, I think we're going to do a field interview. So I start to get out. He's like, no. I said, chill out. He rolls the window down, and he knew her by name. He had arrested her God knows how many times, this, that, and the other. And he's just having a conversation, what's going on, girl, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm kind of like, what is going on? What's happening here? And I'm thinking that we're about to leave and go get our burritos, but he's like, hey, baby, go ahead and get that crack pipe. And she's like, oh, officer, so on. She reaches in her bra, right past me, hands him the crack pipe. Didn't get out and search her, didn't do nothing. He just knew she had a crack pipe on her, and he's like, all right, baby, go ahead and get in. So she gets in. He hands me the clipboard and says, here, go ahead and write up the arrest report. Grabs the mic and says, 226 radio, hold us going south with one in custody. So he just arrested a prostitute for possession of drug paraphernalia. We hadn't even gotten out of the car. And she knew the drill. She got in. She sat down. He heads toward the jail. I'm writing the arrest report. And I'm like, what in the hell just happened? So all this to say, that's how smooth this guy was. I love this dude. He's awesome. I'm so glad I had him for a training officer. So anyway, so all this, is a setup. So I'm on the training car with him. We go to one of these big call outs where the union has called out all these people for, show of force and this, that, and the other. So we're standing the line. So we're standing like on the edge of the road, and all the protesters are behind us. All the union members are behind us. And they're saying some of the most hateful garbage, especially to us, because we're, cops, and, they can talk crap to us. And there was one guy standing behind me and my training officer. And remember, I'm white, my training officer's black. And he kept saying over and over to my training officer, he's like, look at me, I'm black. I'm not qualified, but you have to hire me because I'm black. And he's saying all this. I wanted to knock this redneck's teeth clean down his throat. Thank God my training officer was there, because he looked at me, he knew what I wanted to do, and he was like, hey, just settle down, Sidney. That's okay. Let him talk. It ain't hurting nobody. And he taught me, let people talk. If they ain't trying to hurt us, who cares what he says? And I was just, like I said, I learned a lot from him. I think the world of him. He was a great guy. Like I said, I don't know if he's still police. I hadn't talked to him since like 99 or something, 99 or 2000. But no, I wanted to knock this dude's teeth clean out of his head. But my training officer taught me. He's like, just calm down. Just let him talk. He ain't hurting nobody. He's dumb. He told me, like, he's dumb. And I was like, but ain't it bothering you? It's bothering me. It ain't bothering you. He's like, man, people like that can't bother me. Like, don't worry about it. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, much respect to him. Like I said, I am so glad I had. There were training officers, because when you were a training officer at Birmingham, you got paid 5% extra. You got a 5% raise for being a training officer. And there were a lot of people that really couldn't police their way out of a paper bag that would become training officers just for that 5%, and then they wouldn't teach their rookies anything, and their rookies would actually, is like, once they came off the training car, it's like, okay, good, now you can go on the training car and learn how to be a cop. But there were a lot, I say a lot, there were some training officers that were like that. I was really blessed that I got, at least in my opinion, probably two of the best training officers. At least, definitely, both mine were in the top 5 of training officers at that precinct, and they both taught me. I wouldn't have been as successful at being a cop had I not had either one of those. They were, I think the world of both of them. But like I said, the one that second training officer I had, he taught me a lot about, just let people, if they ain't hurting you, if they ain't, just leave them be, And I was like, ain't that bothering you? He's saying that about you being black, and then you're like, man, people like that can't bother me. I was like, okay. So yeah, long story, but that was it. What else? I suppose because everything on video, open carry, provocative to some people. Yeah, see, I agree with you on that, Marilyn, about the open carry. Like I said, it's not. Me personally, I don't view somebody as carrying one as being necessarily provocative, but to me, there's a psychology, and I may be wrong. There's a psychology that goes around that there's a psychology to someone that feels like they have to go around showing everybody that they're carrying a gun, almost like they're I hate to sound like a jerk, but it's almost like they're trying to project tough guy, that they want to let the world know, I'm a big guy, I'm a big man with a gun. They're like, okay, I can tell you right now, and I've told y'all some of the stories before. I have been in a lot of fights with a lot of people, particularly in policing, and I have come out on top. I have come out as, if there is such thing as a winner in a fight, I have come out as the victor against guys twice my size, and I have had, for lack of better words, I have had my ass handed to me by guys half my size. So I mean, it is not, that's why I say I don't get the psychology behind why somebody feels the need to strap a gun on their side and make sure that everybody at Walmart or at the grocery store knows that they're carrying. You could say it could be a deterrent, it could be this, but it's one of those things where, the old saying of a lock is there to keep an honest man out. A thief is going to break in anyway. Maybe if you're standing in line at a gas station and you've got a gun on and somebody pulled in to rob the gas station and they see you stand there, maybe they decide to go rob the gas station across the street. I don't know. But I know that if somebody's determined to commit a robbery, determined to commit a shooting, somebody standing there with a gun is not going to stop them. If anything, it's going to make you their first target. So, and another thing is, you don't want to get involved in everything. That's like, I didn't think this was going to come up, but or I would have pulled the picture off my phone. But when I was working the other day, where I was working at my customer's house, I was parked on the side of their house, but I was working around the front where I couldn't see my truck. Well, I had a paint sprayer in the back of my truck, and paint sprayers are very popular items to get stolen. But of course, I'm not an idiot, so I keep all my tools cabled down. and I'll keep them cabled to each other. So if somebody wants to steal my sprayer, they're also going to have enough people that somebody can carry the sprayer, somebody can carry the compressor, somebody can carry the ladder, somebody can carry the walkway. I mean, it becomes a jumbled mess. So I walked around my truck. I walked from the front over to my truck to get something out, and the tailgate's down, and my compressor and sprayer are laying in the middle of the street. Somebody had tried to steal my probably $1,800 sprayer while I was just 50 feet away on the other side of the house, on the front side of the house. I didn't hear them. Otherwise, I would have come around and confronted them. But again, the first thing I'm not going to do is draw my gun unless they have some kind of weapon, because, of course, being a cop, then I know that, you can't use deadly force unless, unless you're in, the deadly force policy, basically everywhere, if you reasonably believe that your life or the life of another is in danger of immediate death or serious bodily injury, then you're justified to use lethal force. Somebody stealing my $1,800 sprayer is not, justified. Now, if I had run around there and run after them to beat on them and they pulled out a knife or a gun, then yeah. But, one thing they taught us in the academy, and all this to say, one thing they taught us in the academy was, let's say you're off duty and you do have a gun and it's, it tucked away, it's, out of sight. Just because you're a cop don't mean you want to draw your gun and start hollering commands, because they don't know you're a cop. You're wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt and whatnot. They said, they taught us, they said, unless it comes down to the robber, you legit think the robber is about to shoot the attendant or another customer or something, they said, just make a good witness. You're trained in descriptions and this, that, and the other, and, pay attention to stuff. Just sit back and, act when you need to. There's a lot of people out there, particularly that want to strap their gun on, that have these Walter Mitty fantasies about, they're going to save the day one day, and that they're going to be there when a shooting happens, and they're going to bust rounds and this, that, and I can tell you right now, when the shooting starts, this is from experience, when the shooting starts, yeah, it's a whole different world. But so yeah, all this, to say, to Marilyn's comment about, people that open carry. I mean, I just think there's a psychology, and of course it's just my opinion, that goes along with somebody not, now if you're a police officer and you're in plain clothes, you're a detective or something like that, that's part of having it on your side, is part of your uniform. When I would work some type of plainclothes detail, unless I was working undercover, where I'm not even going to have my badge on me at all. There's not going to be a badge on me. There's not going to be an ID card in my wallet. There's going to be nothing on me that's going to, give anybody in this, that I may be trying to buy dope from or this, that, and the other, that's going to make them think that I'm a cop. But if I'm just working a plainclothes detail, or if I've got to go to court and testify and I'm not working and I'm not in uniform, I'm just going to wear something, slacks and a dress shirt, but I'm still working. That's my uniform for the day. Yes, I'm going to have my gun on my hip in a holster with my badge right in front of it. As a matter of fact, when I do see people carrying, open carrying, that's the first thing I look at, is to see if there's a badge next to the holster, because that generally puts people at ease. But a lot of people, you can tell, I don't even have to look to see if there's a badge when they're wearing a Leonard Skinner concert shirt from 1972, and they look like they hadn't shaved in a month and smell like they hadn't bathed in a week, yet they got a gun hanging off of their granddaddy's old deer hunting holster, like, okay, well, I don't know what you're compensating for, but yeah. Marilyn said, yeah, flaunting it is childish. Yeah. So, I mean, I've got one customer that I love dearly, but we were just having a conversation one day. I was working at his house, and I told him, I said, well, we got to talk about Second Amendment and all this stuff, and I said, well, I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment, and I said I carry everywhere, and this, that, and the other. He's like, everywhere? Oh yeah, I carry everywhere. Carrying now? I'm like, well, yeah. Oh, I mean, he was really kind of. I mean, of course, I'd been doing work for this guy, for years. I mean, not years on this one particular job, but I've been doing work for him for a long time. And he said that he's like, okay. Well, he said, it was just me and him there, but he, expressed to me that he would appreciate it that I not bring my gun in his house again. I was like, okay. So, I think the world of him. I've talked to him since then. He's a great guy, but I hadn't been hired to do stuff at his house again. I don't know if that has anything to do with the fact that he was put off by the fact that I was armed, but he even knew that I was a cop for 11 years. So but it's just the whole, for whatever reason, people, particularly people that don't know or understand guns, then they're kind of put off by it. So. Sounds like a great dude talking about my train. Oh yeah, around once was enough. Flaunting is childish. I see what you mean, Scott. I'd probably hide it or not carry one. Oh, I'm gonna carry one. Like I said, the only place that I don't carry one is in courthouses, because of course you're not allowed to. It doesn't say you're not allowed to, but I mean there's metal detectors, there's police. If you're not gonna happen. And airports. So, I mean, that's just what it is. So, but other than that, you see me walking you see me out on the street, I've got one. You see me at the grocery store, you see me wherever, you can bet I've got one of my guns on me. So, I guess I've seen that on Facebook. Good on you for protecting what's yours. Yeah. That's talking about the stuff getting stolen. I mean, that's I pay too much money for my stuff. I mean, I've seen people steal. I mean, I've watched people steal stuff out of people's trucks before. And again, had I walked around there while the person was trying to steal it, I wasn't gonna just draw down on them and all. If they had a weapon, then it'd be a different story. But I actually thought it was kind of funny. I was like, because I would have loved to have seen the look on their face when they pull this sprayer out, thinking that they're about to get a sprayer that they can either use to make money or take to a pawn shop and sell for $200 or something, and find out that it's cabled to my compressor, a ladder, a walkboard, and then the hook in the bed of my truck. So I mean, I was like, it was sort of like ha ha, who got the better of who today? So. But yeah. Little Rosie is fast asleep. Yeah, I've been doing this, so she's knocked out. Yeah, so we'll let her sleep. Do you go to a range to practice? Not nearly as often as I would like to. Because to be honest with you, I love to shoot just for it's relaxing. It's fun. I mean, it's a good hobby. I really enjoy doing it. But it's also something that if somebody is going to carry, then they do need to practice as much as possible. Because, like I was saying earlier, when things do get heated and rounds do start flying, then it's one of these things where there's not a lot of thinking to be done. You have to kind of act on muscle memory. The old saying of, I'm sure you've heard people say before, that when this thing happened, whatever it is, the training took over. There's a lot to be said for that. So when you're in a hot situation, if you're not prepared for it, then whether panic sets in or you have to think your way through, do I have my gun? How am I carrying it today? Which one is it? Blah, 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 blah. So if you practice it, if you practice and stay consistent, when I say stay consistent, depending on which gun I'm carrying, there's really only two different ways that I'll carry any gun. One is if it's cold weather and I'm wearing a jacket, then I'll carry one of them in a shoulder holster. Other than that, I will carry in the front, inside the waistband, in the front of my pants. If you start carrying, maybe one here, and then tomorrow you're going to carry one here, and then next week you're going to carry one here, and then week after you're going to do an ankle holster, and then maybe a small of the back. Because if you start mixing it up too much, then when the time comes, you may reach right here for your gun when maybe today you're carrying it here. So I suggest one, maybe two different carry methods, carry places. Also, of the 3 guns that I regularly carry, I'm not saying 3 at one time, but depending on clothing and situation and various things will determine which gun I actually carry. 2 of them don't have safeties on them at all, and the one that does have a safety, I carry it with the safety off, because number one, it's just one less thing that you have to do. And when it comes down to for somebody that's going to carry a gun, number one, you need to be comfortable with it in any condition, whether it's safety on, safety off, no safety. The whole idea that you have to carry a gun, to feel comfortable. Not one in the chamber and safety on, and you might as well not carry one if you've got to jump through 47 hoops to be able to reach the point where, okay, now I can defend myself. By the time you've done all this, they've already shot you four times. So you need to be, when it comes out, I'm not saying bring it out to scare somebody, and I'm not saying to bring it out and start busting rounds, but when it's time for it to come out, then you need to be prepared, and the weapon needs to be prepared to start doing its job. So yeah, I carry. Everything that I carry, like I said, the only one that I carry that even has a safety on it, I carry it with the safety off. I carry it with one in the chamber. I carry ready to go because I'm familiar with them. I trust them. I'm not carrying something from the early 1900s that if you sneeze on it, it's going to go off. They're all very safe. As a matter of fact, one of them, the one that I carry in the shoulder holster, somewhere along, I think I must have bumped, I was outside, I must have bumped it under the jacket. It came unsnapped, and when I bent over to pick up something, it fell out and blah, 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 fell across the concrete. It's a stainless steel gun, so it's fairly pretty, so I wasn't real thrilled about it bouncing off the concrete, but it didn't go off because it has safety mechanisms built inside that it's not going to just arbitrarily decide to go off like that. Another one that I carry that doesn't have a safety, I think I went to put it in the holster one day. I was actually standing right about here. Went to put it in the holster one day, wasn't paying attention, and instead of getting it in the holster, it just sort of slid off the top of it I kind of thought it went in, so I turned loose of it, and it just fell down on the carpet. So yeah, I mean those kind of things happen, and both of those were, you know, I won't say that the one falling out of the shoulder holster was completely my fault, but the one falling here, yeah, that was a complete brain fart on my part because I should have been paying attention. That, you know, but at the same time, there's, you know, that's, you know, it's not going to just randomly go off because I dropped it. So, and then there's a couple of rules to remember. There's basically three rules to remember when it comes to a firearm, and yeah, three rules. And if you can remember these three rules, then you'll never have a problem ever in the world. Number one, every weapon is loaded until you confirm otherwise. Because I can't tell you how many times, even when I was a cop, how many times I would answer a shooting call where somebody was shot with an unloaded gun. Meaning, oh, I thought it was unloaded and I pointed at him. We were just playing and I ended up shooting him. Or somebody cleaning their gun thinking that it's unloaded when it's unloaded. So you will not believe how many people have been shot with unloaded guns. So if you assume every weapon is loaded until you prove otherwise, then you'll be fine. Number two, never point a weapon at anything you are not willing to destroy. And that means, you know, even in just, if you're practicing drawing, you know, you unload it, you check this, that, and the other, maybe you set it down to go to the bathroom, your buddy comes in and, you know, racks the slide, chambers around, you come back thinking that it's unloaded, but you're practicing your draw, you're pointing it at, you know, your stereo, you're practicing drawing, and boom, you blow a hole in your stereo. So, guess what? Never point a weapon at anything you're not willing to destroy. And number three, never put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to fire. It's called trigger discipline. You don't just run around putting it, you know, run around with your finger on the trigger. Finger goes up on the frame, and when you're ready to fire, it drops down. So, and then muzzle discipline is to never point a weapon at anything you're not willing to destroy. When I'm holding my weapon, like when I was teaching the kids how to shoot, weapons always pointed down, always pointed up. Generally, I point it down. But then if I'm showing them how to do something, pointing in this direction, somebody's standing here, but I'm going to show them something over here. I'm not going to swing around and point at them even that long. It's going to the floor and then coming. So just always be aware of where it's pointed, and you'll never have a problem. So I have a friend that says that going to the shooting range relaxes her. That does. I enjoy it. I do. So I guess it's true. Yep. Maybe that's why she's always calm. It could be. I do envy some of the things you can do in the U.S. Yeah, I don't, Ryan, I honest to God don't, man, I cannot imagine being somewhere that I can't defend myself. I mean, with all oh God, that's a discussion for a whole another channel. I mean, that's just, maybe she can vent out on a target. Nice. No, it's no, I can't. I mean, I don't know. I mean, y'all have very, very, very restrictive gun laws. So, man. Oh man, God, we've been going for almost 2 hours. Jeez, an hour and 44 minutes. Wow. Told you I can do that. I can run my mouth. Oh man, yeah, I just can't imagine, Ryan. I can't imagine not being able to defend myself. And I know a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of people that want to restrict gun rights, gun ownership in this country, and that's not a good idea, in my opinion. We currently have a very robust Second Amendment that I believe in, and I exercise that right. So, all right. Well, now that I have bored everybody enough with my running my mouth, I have bored Rosie to sleep. Not that that's really difficult, since she does sleep about 20 hours a day. So, all right. Well, I'm gonna get out of here. I got to go to the grocery store and do some other things. So I'm gonna jet out of here. I'm gonna let y'all have y'all Saturday or y'all Sunday back. Saturday. I don't even know what day it is. I'm gonna let y'all have y'all Sunday. Have the rest of y'all Sunday back. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out with me and Rosie today. And I will look forward to seeing y'all next week. So Happy New Year. Hope everybody had a good, safe, happy New Year. And hope everybody has a good, safe week. Productive, happy, safe, all that good stuff. But, yeah. Anybody have anything else? We love to hear what you have to say. Well, thank you, Jeanette. Sometimes I bore myself. Sometimes I want to tell myself, shut up, Scott. Quit talking. But, all right. Well, I'm going to cut out of here. Hope everybody, thank you all for being here. Love you all. Have a good rest of your weekend. Hope you have a great week. Marilyn said Scott's day never. I know, Marilyn. It's crazy. Bye, Scott and Rosie. Be safe, everyone. See you next week. Say toodles doodle. She didn't even flinch. So I'll say toodles for her. Toodles, everybody. Y'all have a good one. I'll leave it up for a few minutes and let y'all say y'all's toodles to each other. So y'all have a good one. I will see y'all next week. Toodles, everybody.